Hello, ngHouston. I am super excited tonight because we have Sani, who's a lot of fun, and I love his accent, and I also love Ionic, which is what he's talking about tonight. So we actually booked this meetup, like what, Sani, like a month or two ago, and we had to wait because he was traveling all the time and he was super busy. But finally, the time is here, and I'm so excited. But before we jump into Sani, I want to introduce the panel. Let's go with Corey first. Corey, you want to say hello?
Hi, Corey Ryland, front-end dev majority of the time. Also instructor for Angular Bootcamp, going around teaching Angular and JavaScript. Then busy writing blogs whenever I can. So that's me.
And those are really cool blogs. I've been watching that blog for quite a while, so that's really cool. I'm really I appreciate you writing that because I found some nifty tricks on there. So yeah, so Corey's got a great blog, and this is Corey's first time joining us on the panel. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And we have Denny. Denny, you want to say hi? I know Denny's been on the panel. You guys know who Denny is, but say hi anyway, Denny.
Sure. Hi, my name is Denny. I'm a UI developer for an e-discovery company here in Houston called Servient, and working with AngularJS, and we're migrating to Angular over the remainder of this calendar year. So, and personally, I've got an application in mind for a hybrid app, so I'm interested to see this Ionic and think about how that might work for them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks as always, Denny. Thanks for joining us. And then we have Paul Spears back. Paul, I think you were on recently, but we had so much fun having you on. We just had to bring you back again. So you want to say hi?
Yeah, thanks. Paul Spears, the lead curriculum author of Angular Bootcamp, working front-end development at Oasis Digital, doing enterprise scale applications.
Awesome.
Thanks,
and you guys know me. I'm Bonnie. And yeah, so that's our panel. And Sani, if you're ready, I think we're gonna give it to you, and you can take it away. Do you want us to wait until the end with questions, or do you want us to just jump in and let you know if we have questions?
You know what? I think we should keep it as open as possible. If someone's got a question, they can just fire away, and it would be nice if I could just answer it in the same context. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, that's great. And we also have a couple people watching online. So you guys watching online, I can see you in the chat. So if you have questions for Sani, just put them in the chat, and we will see if we can get them answered. So yeah, I think we're ready. Sani, you want to go ahead and share your screen, and I will make you the presenter.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hello. You are presented to everyone. All right. So I think this is the button here, and everybody can see my screen like an inception of themselves.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to talk about 5 apps with 1 code. Forgive me for not removing the Angular up sign, but I promise you it's very relevant content. So let's make this full screen. So yeah, I'm gonna do the boring stuff and get it out of the way. A lot of people call me Sani Yusuf. Depending on what country you are, some people call me ZF, which actually means wolf. It's Hebrew for wolf. So, yep, I'm in London. I'm Nigerian. I founded Hybrid. I co-organized Ionic UK. And if you know me and you know my Twitter or my Facebook or my Instagram, I love water. I absolutely love paddleboarding. I love water. Final note about me is that I'm a big fan of the Avatar movie. So if you are into that kind of thing, feel free to shout me out. And to do that, you can just shout me out at Sani Yusuf everywhere. SaniYusuf, Medium, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere pretty much. LinkedIn, you can just find that username and it should be me. So without further ado, I will tell you about today, where I'm going to show you how you can actually create 5 applications with 1 code base. Now, today's talk, I'm going to talk about some of the boring stuff, and then I'll go ahead and actually share my desktop to you and show you an application I actually created, and then we can go ahead from there. So at any point in time, feel free to ask any questions. I think I can just open okay, I think if there's a question, Bonnie will probably just give me a shout out so that I can focus on this.
Yes, I will.
Okay, perfect. All right, so when I talk about 5 applications of 1 code, what are these 5 applications that I'm talking about? I guess the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is actually how to create an iOS mobile application, a hybrid application that will be installable from the iOS App Store. So this is an app that you can create, develop, publish with Xcode, and people will, with iPhones, iPads, and I think iPods as well. There might be some other thing that I don't know about. but they should probably be able to install it from if they have the App Store. It'll work on all devices that I have just discussed. And the most important thing is it will look and feel like a typical iOS application. And why am I making a point of this? You can, today, there are so many ways you can create an application, especially if you're creating hybrid applications. But the look and feel you expect from an iOS application is very different. You know, certain icons, certain look and feel, certain animation, certain design themes and everything. So we'll make sure that we actually achieve that as well. And then next we want to go on Android, you know, Team Android, whoop, whoop. And this is also going to be installable from the Google Play Store. It's going to work on all Android devices, you know. I can guarantee you that it would probably work for anything from Android 4.4 upwards, which is what I recommend, because at this point in time, you really shouldn't be developing for 4.4 below, and just for like a gazillion reasons, like WebKit and everything. And I know you'd go on Google dashboard and see that, oh, there's like 1% that still support 2.2. Actually, it turns out that it was just one developer that was testing his application on Android 2.2. And someone reached out to him to actually offer him a brand new phone. Fun fact that I cannot guarantee is true. Anyways, it's also going to look and feel like a typical Android application. Why am I saying this? The Android has what we call the material design, which is a design language that Android or Google is used to create Android applications. So you would want to make sure that all your applications actually feel and take that design so that your users actually feel at home while they're doing this. Now, the next thing we're going to do is what we call a Windows Universal application. Now, two questions that some of you might already have. 2 steps ahead. First, why am I saying Windows Universal? Why am I not saying Windows Phone? So Windows Phone, first of all, is dead. And why I'm saying Windows Universal is because now Microsoft has created an SDK where when you create one application, it wouldn't just work across the phone, but also across Windows itself, Xbox, Surface, everything that's Microsoft, basically. Microsoft is trying to get to. But with that said, you know, it's going to be installable from the Windows App Store. But seriously, if in 2017 you're making Windows application, I would really, really question some things about you. But not to say Windows is great, you know. We all like Microsoft, of course. All right, no jibes, no more jibes. And last but not the least, we've counted 3 so far, you know, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, or Windows Universal. And where are we going to get the rest of the 2? So what I call the last one is actually what I call a super web application. Now today, if you look at today's world, a few years ago, we had websites, you know, the web. We didn't even use we used words like websites or web pages. Today we call them web apps. Well, now why do we call them applications? The reason is this, because the web is such a powerful platform. It's the biggest ecosystem out there, and as long as you have a browser, you can access a web application from anywhere. You know, if you have a Mac, a Windows computer, a Linux computer, if you've got Chrome, things would probably look the same. Well, you know, Internet Explorer does have its own, you know, say on things and how it decides to make some things look boxy, but, you know, that's minor. And the concept of super web application has actually changed today, because we don't just have web applications that run on the desktop only. You know, things run on the TV now. We have super large screens, you know, projectors. We also have what we call the progressive web app, which is a new standard that's coming along. Basically, the bridge between applications that you can install, but they also run in web. And we will talk about that later on. And these are going to be responsible to different mobile devices as well, you know, tablets out there, normal phones out there, and also support the progressive web app initiative, like I actually just mentioned, which we'll get into more detail a bit later on. But the most important thing here is we're going to do all this with one single code base. And when I mean one single code base, I'm not here trying to, you know, offer you some contract here to sign and then you forget, you just agree to terms and conditions, and later on you are reminded of some other things. No, like we're not going to have like if else sort of thing. We're going to actually write one code base, and out of the box, we're going to get a couple of applications. Now, how do we do that? So this is the point where I lose like half of my crowd, and a lot of people are like, you know, they absolutely do not believe what I'm saying because it sounds absolutely impossible. But And I say to them, just bear with me, you know, come with me on a journey. You know, I don't bite, maybe just a little bit, but just come with me on a journey and I can show you. All right. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. What exactly is Ionic? You know, the questions I get, like I dedicate at least 20 hours a week to answer this particular question. And I'll answer this question every single week. You know, I get people saying, you know, what is Ionic? Is it better than Cordova? Is it better than this, like that, you know? Exactly. So Ionic is just really an open source SDK that lets web developers build mobile applications. Now, it is not the only one, but, you know, it has a lot of advantages over some of the existing ones. It has a lot of strengths because Ionic is actually built with Angular in mind. It's just really built with web. You know, it's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's all it is. The simple definition is it's an SDK built for hybrid applications. Now, what does that mean? So when hybrid applications came to be thanks to PhoneGap and Cordova, what a lot of people did is they just had a web application and they just took all that code, bundled it with Cordova, submitted to the App Store, and got rejected because their apps were absolutely terrible, you know? And why were they terrible? The reason is when you're creating a native application, you have all these great sugary, you know, components like a tab component, a label, a button, hardware acceleration, animations, all of this out of the box. On the web, however, you have span, tag, you know, development, tables if you still use them, things like that, just and CSS and JavaScript. So you kind of have to do so much from scratch by yourself to get it to work. Now, this is the problem Ionic saw, and they created a design language around mobile applications so that web developers can harness that and publish with Cordova. But not only did they do that, they made this platform specific, and we'll talk about that. So Ionic is built with Angular. It stands on top of Angular. We're around Ionic 3x now, which is completely different from Angular's, you know, SemVec. So Angular, we're already at Angular 4, going to Angular 5. Ionic has a different semantic version. They are Angular 3, which uses Angular 4, of course. So don't think because you're using Angular 4 and that you're using the older version Ionic. No, Ionic 3 is the latest version available, and doesn't mean it's not hand in hand with the latest version of Angular. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the CLI of Ionic. Ionic comes with a very kick-ass, badass, like all-around badass CLI tool. We have people like Dan and, you know, Josh to really thank for this from the Ionic team. They've made this great tool, and a lot of what you see on the Angular CLI actually really borrows from this. Because today, a few years ago, we want to create web applications. What do? We take index.html, we write a bunch of very ugly code, and we just refresh our browser after we save, and that's it. Today, you have to worry about TypeScript and transpiling, you know, Babel and Browserify and Webpack and, you know, ES6, because all browsers don't support all that, and linting, and I can go on and on and on to bore you to death. But I'll tell you something, I don't like doing those things because we're spending so much time actually getting our app to create a boilerplate for our application. This is where the Ionic CLI comes in. It handles things like Sass compilation, pre-processing, some people say, build bundling, you know, all your bundling, you know, AOT. It has a happy marriage with Cordova and the Angular CLI as well for AOT. TypeScript, transpiling or compilation, scaffolding as well, so that you can generate, if you're used to Yeoman, this should be fairly similar. And it has a great error reporting tool. We know how atrocious Angular's error reporting tool. I'm so sorry, but, you know, we're not there yet. They're working on it. They're doing hard work, but we can do better. And I think the Ionic team has actually gone a step ahead to really do something great there. The next thing we can talk about is how configurable and customizable Ionic is. When you're developing hybrid applications or mobile applications in general, you want to know how you can easily just tie in your company's logo, colors, theme system, and you have so many components. You want to know, what if I want my component to look like this on Android, but I want it to look like this on iOS? What if I want it to look like this only now and obey other rules? So you can customize on so many different levels, and I will be showcasing that as well. It has an awesome, huge community. I am not quite aware if there's a Houston Ionic community. I've looked, so I'm not quite sure. But there are more than over 100 groups in the world. I mean, there's this group like pretty much everywhere. We've got 30,000 plus stars on GitHub. We got a Slack channel with 13,000 people on, like every day, just churning out questions. I think Slack's probably gonna want us to pay pretty soon because we're really taking the freemium level to a whole new place. It has native X components, and these components are very semantic. You know, they're very, very, very extensible as well. You can see like the example I have here, where you have an Ion header. You probably don't know what that means, but you can kind of get this hint that that's the header and the content page. And inside the header, you have a nav bar and a title and things like up. And these are modeled off the native SDK. There's also an Ionic cons library, which is basically font awesome for Ionic. It has more than 1,000 or around 2,000 built by Ben. And it's very, you know, these are just icons that are normally available for native mobile developers, that you can use them there. And of course, in 2017, almost 2018, if I tell you that it's not PWA ready, that would be dangerous for me. So, you know, the PWA initiative is very much supported, you know, thanks to the manifest.json file and, you know, the service worker, which means you can now create applications with the web, but you can have them full screen mode, installable, have a home screen icon, have a splash screen, and no app stores, which means you can keep the 30% that Apple always takes from you when you do in-app purchases. Sad note, Safari is not supported now, but Chrome definitely is. And Edge is working on this. I think Firefox is already doing this as well. You know, there are other things like, you know, right to left support. You know, we forget that there are around 1 billion people in the world. 1 billion, actually, yes, that will read from the right to left. And this is something we easily forget because, you know, why would we care? So these are some of the things that we can do. And also, you know, multilingual support. When you're creating a mobile application, you're not just creating a mobile app, you're creating a business. And you want to know how you can easily, you know, support multiple languages. Thanks to the ng2 translate library, you can actually achieve that as well. And I can tell you a bit about what the service worker is. You've probably seen 1,001 diagrams, but this is my go. So how does the service worker work to achieve what we call that progressive web application? So you have your application, you have the server, which is where your data is, and you have the service worker, which is just a script that your application registers. Now, every service worker is independent to a particular domain. So like if you're creating an app called sunnylooksgood.com and it has a service worker, that service worker file is only going to work for sunnylooksgood.com. But the greatest thing about the service worker now is it is independent of the application. So even when you close the tab, that service worker can still be running. It's a system level process because it's completely different lifecycle to your application. And that's a great thing because that means you can start your app from cold and you can respond to so many things in the background. And it runs on a separate thread as well, so it's not slowing down your application. So whenever you send a request, the request is intercepted by your service worker in this space that, you know, is isolated. And before that request goes to the server, it hits the service worker. And when it's coming back from the server, you can also intercept it in the service worker and vice versa. Now, why is that very powerful? That's very powerful because now if I, for example, send a, a request, or let's say I'm getting an image back from the server, but I want to make sure that I'm serving only a specific dimension of the image. I can do all those crazy things in the service worker. I can cache, more importantly, so that, you know, next time when I'm trying to get those resources, because the cache is the most, you know, is the fastest way to get resources. That service worker will just serve me the cached request. At this point in time, I'm just gonna go ahead and ask that everyone, you can still hear me, right? Everyone here?
We can hear you. We're just all muted, so it takes us a second to shut off mute so we can answer.
Perfect. All right, perfect. All right. So without further ado, I am going to, you know, like I said, I am going to show you all you need to come, you know, like to like basically and really do everything you want. So let's switch from this and actually now show the what we call the let's actually look for this application, which is called, I named it here. Okay, so we're actually just going to open Finder. I'm going to open Sani here. I'm going to open, you know, so first thing I want to actually do is to actually show you how you would sort of like create a standard Ionic app. So we can actually just open a terminal here, and I can just increase this. We can make this bigger. I think everybody should be able to see this now. Like, I've made it as big as possible. So ls, I can just show you all this, and I can just cd into my desktop. And here we can actually see this. And inside here, what we can actually do is, if I wanted to start a brand new, let's say, Ionic application, I would just basically use the Ionic CLI. Of course, you'd like make sure that's installed, sudo npm install Ionic and Cordova as well, just to make sure you have the full package. And let's just say I want to start up a new Ionic application. I can just say Ionic start. Let's say we name the app. We can just say ngHouston here, and we can just give some space. And what we can do is actually provide a boilerplate. And there are different boilerplates. There's the tab, there's the side menu, there is the a bunch of all of them. You can actually, I can show you actually. So we can just say, well, let's use the side menu and hit enter, and this is just gonna go ahead and actually create. So there's actually an update. We're just gonna say, no, we don't wanna install right now because it's a terrible time to actually install. Oh, okay, so we actually did not get the command correctly. This should be start, and then we can just say ngHouston. And the CLI is so smart. Like, if you want to do Ionic start, you can do like --help, and that should tell you like some of the things you can do. You know, like it's a very contextualized CLI too. And
you're supposed to mess up when you're live coding. It's like a rule. You have to. And
yeah,
it's funny because sometimes when I'm live coding the ngHouston, people are like, no, Bonnie, you have a typo.
That's perfectly normal. It's like, yeah, something always happens. I'm actually looking for my other application, and I'm struggling to find it. So let me just make sure. Oh, here it is.
Isn't it midnight where you're at? It's like in the middle of the night, so you're allowed to.
It's fine. I come alive at night, you know. I'm a white walker. I bring the storm. All right. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go to my ngHouston application, and I'm just gonna do cd, you know, something like ngHouston. Just make sure I'm going into the application, and I haven't coded yet. So what I'm gonna do is run this command called Ionic lab, and this is where the magic happens. So this is where the CLI really comes in its own, does its everything for you. The Webpack comes in. You don't need to configure anything. The transpiling, everything just starts, and then you get this beautiful thing, you know. And what we can do is we can actually add iPhone as well. So we have actually 3 applications. So we can just close this, and I can just reduce this a little bit so that everyone can actually see. Oh no, it should be big enough.
So Sani, can I stop you for 1 second, because that was so smooth that I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. You did not just pull up a project that you already did. You literally just created this project from scratch with just the little stuff that you typed in on the command line. This is not like something that you already did.
Absolutely. So Ionic is a framework that can get you up and running. Let's just say, for example, I just installed Ionic. So that's step number 1. Sudo npm install Ionic -g, you know, globally. And then the next thing the very next command I can run is to actually start creating an Ionic app, which is this command, which is Ionic, you know, start, with actually like spelling start properly, which is what I did somewhere else, which I can't find. Ionic start. So start is the command that allows you to boilerplate a new application, and then you name your application ngHouston, and then you can give it a template. So you can use a blank template, you can use a side menu template, you can use a couple of ones. And with that done, the other command is just to serve your application. You can use Ionic serve, which serves it on the browser, but Ionic lab is also a different type of serve that basically brings this and shows you this. And you can see this is a side menu application. But one thing you would notice is that, what's going on here? We still haven't even seen our project. We haven't even written any code at all. But we can see 3 applications. So how the hell did we get there? This is what we call platform continuity or contextual design. The Ionic team calls this. And what that means is, okay, let me just refresh this. And these are 3 independent instances of their own. So what that means is, whenever the Ionic code you run it on goes on an Android environment, it recognizes that. It says, hey, I'm in an Android environment. I should look like an Android app. I should behave like one. My animations should be different. My fonts should be different. My font size should be different. My alignment, the alignment of my header should be different. You know, even my buttons should be material design because I am Android and I'm a badass. And
Sonny, I got a question for you.
Can you go back? Show me again. I mean, I thought I knew all about Ionic because I've been using Ionic for a while and I like it a lot. But I did not know how did you get the Ionic Lab? You put that on the command line?
Yeah, so it's a command called Ionic Lab, and you can also do Ionic serve -- lab, but Ionic Lab is now a first-class command. So what this is doing is basically serving your application, but in the lab. So even if you went to like localhost 8100, you just get your normal Ionic serve, you know, right? This is what you would normally do. You'd inspect an element here, you would, you know, do this, and you'd start to code. But I prefer the Ionic Lab because at every time you shouldn't focus on, you should just focus on coding in your IDE while this is always just showing you what your app is looking like, not just on Android, iOS, Windows, but all of them at the same time. So you're always seeing all your deliverables at the same time, which I think is really, really cool.
Can you see console log here?
So no, you can't see console log here. You'd have to like sort of like view, inspect the elements and the normal way. So you can actually still, you know, just inspect this element and decide that you wanna, you know, do something like do a more responsive thing and actually just do your console log. So even though you'd have like 3 of everything, but the reason why I prefer personally to use this is like a lot of the times when I do want to like console, like I want to focus on maybe like solving a bug or something, I can do something like that. Or actually what you can do is you can connect your Visual Studio Code with the Ionic system, which actually I can't quite remember how to do, but Visual Studio Code has this plugin that allows you to connect it so that you can actually set breakpoints directly from Visual Studio Code. So you wouldn't even need like the console log of like Chrome, except maybe you needed to like find some HTML stuff, which is cool as well.
This is very cool.
Yep, I agree.
By the way, my ngHouston people in the chat are getting a kick out of you. They think you're funny.
All right, thank you very much, guys. All right. Another thing we can see is also, you know, when you like, let's toggle this, you know, this guy here. This is how we explain Android, you know. We see this guy here and we push him to the side and he covers the entire car. We can, you know, we can drag as well, you know. But now let's see how that behaves on iOS. You can see it's a completely different behavior. The content is actually pushed out. And that's what, if you have an iPhone, this is all you're used to. You know, the font size is different. The alignment is different. Even the buttons are different. And this is Windows Universal as well. Slightly different, you know, you can see how it's a bit more grayed out. The buttons are different. And you can also programmatically toggle this. And the thing with the side menu is I like the side menu because you can have side menus on both sides. So you can have it on the left-hand side, you can have it on the right-hand side. So all this we've done so far, we haven't actually even looked at the code yet, which is awesome. So let's actually go and look at the code for this. So how do we look at the code? We just go and say, ngHouston here. Where are you? Where are you? ngHouston, show yourself. Here we are. And we open up Visual Studio Code here. So I'm just going to make sure I make this full screen and I increase. Yeah, so this should be big enough for everybody to see, I believe. And this is a standard Ionic application here. You know, we've done npm install. Hooks is a Cordova thing, which is for more advanced things. So don't worry about that. Resources, you can ignore that. This is where I want you to start looking, which is the source folder. That's where your application lives. If you're used to Angular, you know, the new Angular, I don't want to say Angular 2. Igor might just send me an electric shock from wherever he is. Every time you say Angular 2, a puppy dies somewhere, according to Igor Minor. You can't take my word for it. But I
saw him at ngConf and I said that right to him. As soon as I saw him, and he was like, Bonnie, it's just Angular. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, just Angular.
I'm trying.
Twitter bot's gonna tweet at us.
Yep. All right, so we can actually collapse. You can collapse this and just see. So this is the first thing you see here. That's an app module.ts, you know, like a standard app module. Yeah, but you can see the Ionic module is actually being bootstrapped here with our entry component, which is my app, which is the app we want to launch. So this is how like you would bootstrap your Ionic application, and it's still an Angular app, so there's still the whole main TS, you know, your app module is still being bootstrapped. This is just a standard thing that no one should ever touch if you're doing Angular. Like, just leave this piece of code. It's like, leave it. But you also have that particular, and what you do here is you have these declarations, and you can see that they're actually, what we used in Angular is the entry component is normally just one. We just have like one. So a good question is like, why we got each of these? So in Angular, in Ionic, when you create a page, and a page is like a component in Ionic, in a normal Angular, but the page has a slightly more complex behavior. What you do is you have to declare it twice. There's like a long reason why this is true. You might want to tweet Mike Hardenton. He has the best answers. But also what you may not know is Ionic also supports lazy loading because it doesn't use the Angular router. It uses its own router, which I think is like super 1,000 times actually simpler. We can actually test that as well. So you can see the app.html, which is what we've seen here. So what the app.html is doing is it has a root navigation. This is what you'd expect, like your router outlet, sort of like something like that. This is what it does. And it's just referencing the menu, which is the side menu, to the router outlet, saying, hey, hover on top of this. And you can do a lot with that side menu. I think there's like an attribute called side where you can actually just say, you know what, we want you to be on the right-hand side because we are cool like that. And as soon as you save, we've just made a change. We can go back here, and when we toggle, this guy comes out from the right-hand side. You know, we can also drag from the right-hand side, and we can toggle from the right-hand side. Now, this is how powerful it is. And you can have two of these at any point in time, but you can have one active and another active. I think this is a really, really powerful thing. Anyways, without further ado, the next thing I'll show you is the SCSS. We should never forget this. This is where you'd want to put like your global styles. This is where you put like your styles of CSS, but you would be using Sass. So any global, design stuff, it would be here. But also, how do you override like an Ionic like theme? Let's say, this is color blue, right? This is what we call, let's see what this looks like here. If we go to the app.html and we look at this, we can see that that particular button, it's not even using, it's just using the standard color, which is the primary color. What if I want all the primary colors to change from blue to like, I don't know, D71300 red because I love that color? Let's see how we can do that. There's a folder called the theme folder, and inside that you see a variables.scss file. And inside of the variables.scss file, you can actually just come in there and you can see so many things that you can override. This is where you override everything you want, your default direction, the way your fonts are, if you want to use a new font, for example. This is where actually the colors are set. So what you can do here is just say, you know what? I want you to be D71300 because this was the color of Sani's first startup. And we save that, and let's see Sani's very ugly color. Again, the CLI has handled that automatically for us, and we've seen that an occurrence for that change.
Okay, Sani.
Yes?
You showed us that variable that says left to right.
Yep.
I got to know, if you change it, will it just do the right thing?
If we change to like RTL, I actually never tried. This is actually pretty new because normally how you do this is programmatically. So let's actually check and see.
Do it.
Yeah, so let's see what that does.
It's my favorite when you guys say, I've never tried that before.
Yeah, absolutely. I have never tried. So I'm guessing this should be RTL, except maybe I've done something horribly wrong. Let's see. Let's see the build system. So nothing's actually happened. Oh, it has actually happened. So if you see, let me see. Oh no, nothing has actually happened. Let's just make sure.
I was just being hopeful.
Yeah. Oh no, actually yes, something did happen. So if you looked at this, home is here, and if we change to RTL and we show this here, you can see that it's now changed. So if this was like written like Arabic or Hebrew, it would probably make much more sense. But I can actually show kids right to left because I have a demo for this actually today in Hebrew, which is absolutely awesome. So yeah, don't you worry. Who asked that question, please?
Paul.
That was Paul.
Oh, okay, Paul. Okay, guys. This is the unprofessional side of me. I have to just reach out like 1 second to I get my charger. All right.
Right, look at he's on what, 11%, 15% battery. Living on the edge.
All right, I've got it. This is the point where my charger blows up and like, I don't know. Just refuses to work. So let's see.
Quickly turn into a lightning talk.
Yeah.
And that's all.
All right, it works. Okay, so this is like where you like sort of like customize so many things. Like you can customize a lot here, not just like so let me just show you something. If I go to the Ionic documentation here, whenever you see a particular component, let's explore the docs here. Whenever you see a particular component here, and let's say the action sheet, for example, you can go to the API docs for this particular component. And this is just the action sheet controller. And what you see these variables here, like, you know, they're with, let's just use button, for example. Let's see some of the, so it exposes this API of like, what's it called? The radius and everything like that, to see like, so you can override these on every single level, like I said, custom level, on a platform level, or globally. And this is probably where you'd want to do that. But there's also another way where, let's say, for example, you want a specific component to behave a specific way. Let's say we can use something like, we can look at, by the way, this is like where you can see so many, all the Ionic components pretty much listed out. And you wanted something like maybe tabs here. Let's say, let's look at the tabs controller, ES, OPQ, RST. I know my alphabets, if I remember. Yeah. And let's say you wanted all the tabs to be like positioned on like the top for all platforms. You can override that as well. There's so many things you can override. Like you can come here and put things like, you know, the layout, the placement, and you can configure that on different levels. But we're not going to spend too much time anyways. So let's go ahead and see, you know, we've got this application. Let's go ahead and try and see what we can actually build. So what I'm going to aim to build is, I'm going to try to rebuild the application I built in my last conference, which is Israel. And I'll give you a bit of background about that application. That application is called, I call the application Tel Avivo. And the whole point of the application is, Israel's a lovely country, and when I first went there in November, I wanted to, you know, visit a lot of sites. So I went on Twitter and the internet and got like a bunch of sites that I wanted to visit, and made an API out of it and created an app out of it. So actually, let's go ahead and build like a new version of this application. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, you know, I'm going to go home page. I'm going to go here. And what I'm actually just going to do is sort of like put this as a reference point, but I am going to live dangerously, which is to actually just code my app. So what I would do is I would just go here on the pages, and I will delete all this. And I'm going to use a component called the Ion card component. And at first, before I actually use this component here, let me show it to you. So let's go to card ABC. Let's go back to main docs, UI component.
And I just want to say something real quick while you're on that page, Sani.
Yep.
I love the interface that they have. And I love the fact that when you go to that website, you scroll up and down, and like all the different features and components that are available in the Ionic API are right there on that phone. I think it's beautiful, because when I was first learning Ionic, I used that website so much, and I love it. So I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Let me show you a great feature that you might not know of. So not only does this phone just show you, but you can also toggle like iOS, Android, Windows.
I did not know that. I didn't know about Ionic Lab either. I love it.
Yeah, so you can actually, any feature here. Let's just look at the action sheets, for example. You can just toggle, you know, let's go action sheets here. And okay, what's happening? Action sheets doesn't want to come up. Okay, here we go. Because it show action sheet. This is a, you know, an action sheet we use in iOS. And you can go on Android, and you can see the same exact code running differently. And you can go on Windows Phone and just do that. So you actually know what you're getting. So this is another great thing that they have in the docs. Anyways, so I just wanted to show you the card. A card is, you know, just a simple thing. You know, we can just copy card and image. You know what? Why don't we go ahead and just, you know what? We do this. We copy direct from the docs, because that is what everybody does, because it's the right thing to do.
I like it.
Exactly. And, you know, we can just pretend that we have this title here. And what we're going to go ahead and actually do now is, hey, let's see, you know, let's see what this looks like. It's probably going to be very ugly, because that image is not going to, of course, like it's not going to like resolve. Well, what I want to do is I actually want to show you something called the let me go here and show you a provider actually and show you a site here. So let me just copy this link here that I actually hosted this API, and I can go here. So this is an API which I do not have any copyright for because I have just listed. So yes, there's no copyright. It's just something I just made up, and it's just a bunch of sites. And let's go to JSON viewer and actually see what that structure looks like. And we can just copy paste that, format it, view it, and let's see what each one looks like. So you have an ID, description, image, a name of places. So let's try and actually do this. So if you know Angular, we can just go ahead and do this in our class. But no, we are writing proper Angular. So what do? We would create a service or provider. Now, how do we do that? So I'll just go ahead and say Ionic generate provider. And I would say I want to call this sites because this is a bunch of like tourist sites, right? So I'll just click enter. And voila, like what do I do? Lights action. The next thing I want to do is I want to actually register this in my app module. Do not forget. But hey, the Ionic CLI does that automatically for us now, actually. So whenever you generate a provider, you don't have to remember it. It just goes ahead and puts it in the provider's block for you, which I think is a great feature. So we can just go ahead and start using this. So what do we want to do here? What I would do is I'll just do this. I'll just say private API. Of course, you should be using an injection token for this, but we're going to just keep it simple. Don't tell anybody we did this. We're just gonna copy this string here and say this is our, code here, and we're just gonna say so. We're just gonna create a function called get sites. Let's say, right? Get sites. And what we'd say is this dot HTTP, for example, dot get, and inside that, this is just Angular, standard Angular stuff. We pass in this dot API, and then we can just call the map operator just to do the response to JSON, which actually you might not need to do if you're using the latest version of the HTTP client, which I haven't actually tested. But yeah, let's just make response. Sorry. Response, and we say response to JSON. Just make sure we're changing that observable. We want to make sure we return that observable directly itself.
So Sani, I noticed that you generated this code using generate provider.
Yes.
But what I'm looking at here looks more like an Angular service.
It is just that, literally. It is just an Angular service.
Okay.
It's just, I think the command when you're using the Angular CLI is it provider or service?
It's a service.
Exactly. So it's called service. I don't know why, for example, the Ionic team decided to go with provider. I know it used to be service before, but for some reason now it's a provider. And I actually had to update my course recently because of this. But yeah, it's just generating a normal Angular service, that we do the injector. Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
So,
Reminds me of Shy's NG Watt.
yeah. Oh, I miss Shy, Big Daddy Pipe. That's the guy. Yeah. So we're gonna just import this, nice provider that we've just created, and it should be here. So we can just go ahead providers, and we can just go ahead sites, and we can go ahead and just call sites here. And inside here, we're just gonna say sites provider. And here we're just I like to put private on my providers. You can use whatever you want, sites provider, and you can say sites provider here. So here, what most people want to do now, we're going to use this, right? What most people want to do actually is go ahead and do like an ng on init, because that's the right thing to do. But when you're working with Ionic, a component is much more complex. This is a page. Every page this is a page. A page is, just like a component, it's got everything, but this is like a full-on page. It can be quite difficult to disconnect. It's still a component, but it has some extra sugars attached to it. Now, what are these extra sugars? It also has its own life cycle because a page, or you have all the Angular component life cycles, but it also has like a page. You need to know when a page is like initialized. You need to know when the page has loaded in terms of when the Ionic stuff is loaded, when the animation has finished. You need to know if you can actually, you have like what we call nav guards, if you want to be able to enter that page. And there's so many of them. I've blogged about this. I'm pretty sure my blog post is like super awesome. If it's not, you can tell me so that I can like improve it, and you can read about it. So the one we're going to use is ion view id load, and you don't actually need to overwrite those, like, you know, the interface itself to implement that interface. It's actually they're overloaded by design or by default. So this ion view this is like the ng on init, but for the page level. If I have after ng on init, this is on the page level. This is like, okay, the page is loaded. It is the user can see the page. The animation is finished. You can start interacting, and this is a great place to do this. So what we're going to do actually is we're just going to say private. No, we should probably do this right. Public sites observable equals let's just say of type any, or we could just say types observable equals, we can just declare it like this. Actually, there's no need to. We can just say when this loads, we can just say this is site provider dot get sites. So this dot sites observable equals that observable that gets returned. And then we can just go to the home page here. We can just do this for semantics. And I know we haven't actually looked at our app in a while. We will. I promise you guys. And we can just do an ng4 here. ng4. We can say let site of sites observable, and we can just use our very old lovely async pipe. And if I am right, this should actually completely break our application because I'm doing that by design. Because why? We haven't injected our HTTP, which is by design. But the reason why I did that is I just wanted to show you the error reporting of Ionic. So this is your application. Instead of seeing like a white page, which you don't have to like, but you can just see like this showing you, hey, there's actually a problem, and it tries to show you the relevant like problem, so you don't have to like go to your console and look at the stack. Hey, you know, no provider for HTTP. You know, oh, all right, I know what you want, and I'll give it to you. Let's go to module, and we are going to go to the Angular here. Let's just give it some space, and we're going to say import nothing from Angular HTTP. And we're going to do this guy here. So we're going to call the HTTP module because, of course, if you had an older Ionic application, the HTTP module got injected by default, but now it doesn't. So you got to go there and just put this in your imports. And now if we save, we should actually fix our application. So we can just wait for the build system to run and just to make sure we're all good. Okay. All right, so our app is back to normal. So let's speed things up now. Let's go to that home page and let's actually try to use it. So let's have a look at this as well. So we want to show the image and the name of the site. So image is actually image. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to bind this little guy here and say use site.image. And we're going to bind this guy here. We're just going to say site.name. And let's actually go ahead and see this beauty. Okay, our beauty is broken. What is wrong with our beauty? Site.name, site.image. Why is she broken? So now maybe we actually need to inspect to see what the hell is wrong. So we can see some errors here. Why do we have 404s? Not found. Oh, okay. So I think what was happening here is, okay, so maybe let's actually try to change some things. So sometimes what happens is the what's it called? The Ionic build system can get a bit confused because it's trying to be too smart with Webpack, and some things can go wrong. So let's actually see if anybody sees anything that might be wrong with my code. Please feel free to sort of like give me a shout.
We're looking. We just figured it out.
Okay. So what I normally do when things like this happen, I just put a space and just force it to kick in again. Okay. Oh, all right. Why wouldn't you show? Why won't you show? Okay, so let's walk through this and see. The good thing is we have this guy here that gives us everything. So we can say, hey, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? Say that again?
Might have a theory.
Okay.
All right, so you got get sites there. And
yes.
you're calling it in your did view.
Yes.
View did load, right? And where do you actually, so your get site, does that actually return the observable at that point?
Yes. So yes, this get site returns this observable here. And we have home.ts. And in here, we just set this guy here, sites observable, to this guy.
All right, yes, that's not it.
What are we looking?
No, I was wrong. You're fine. Keep going.
Oh, okay. So for some reason, something doesn't want to work here because I haven't got a clue as well. What we can
do you have to include a module for the async pipe?
No, I think that comes as part of the normal module, the common module, doesn't it? Wouldn't it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it just comes part of either the common module or the HTTP module, so we should be fine. That's interesting. We can actually try to see it once more. Let's go to localhost 8100. If we don't, then we can just use the ready-made code that I have, actually showcase the future itself. So let's see, console here. So actually, this guy says everything is fine, which is interesting. So what is wrong? Why won't you work? Okay, let me just make sure it's like the same as this guy as well. So what I'll do here is like be very, very like religious about using types. And like just make sure like I'm actually returning of type observable here, which shouldn't really make a difference, but hey, you never really know. Angular can be very, very weird sometimes. Home.ts, we are running out of time, Sani. Home.ts here. Let's just do observable here.
Maybe that map operator import.
Yeah, I do know that if you're using the new version of the what's it called? The HTTP doesn't require you to like so I don't know, maybe they've updated that. I haven't used, like I said from the beginning, I have actually used that new HTTP client because now you don't need to do response to JSON anymore. Like they do that by default for you. So I don't know if that's the case here. We can try. Let's actually first save this and try and see.
Did you put question marks in your view? The first time I used observables, I got stuck on that because I didn't have those question marks in there.
What's it called? The Elvis. That would normally happen. That would throw us an error, wouldn't it?
Oh, you know, yeah, right off it wouldn't even build.
Let's try and return this. Let's try and return this guy. This is just.
Andrew wants to know if your request is going through. Can you put a console log in there?
So again, oh yeah, that's actually a good idea. So let's look at the request here. Where is this guy here?
You could click the XHR tab and it'll filter it down.
XHR. So the request is not even being sent, which is interesting. That is interesting. Very, very interesting. At this point, I actually don't have a clue. I know it doesn't seem like neither of us has a clue what's going on.
Hey, Sani, maybe you need to return it as observable. Have you done that?
Yeah, that's right. I've actually done that. I've said
But in the end, so you see line 23 on your dot map. At the end of that, right in front of your semicolon, you might try as observable.
Well, like
dot as. No, yeah, there you go. As observable.
But the map operator already returns an observable. So if you look, yeah, because this definitely returns an observable already. So you wouldn't read. I don't think it will allow. Anyways, To save time, you can just go ahead and run this guy here. You see, always have a backup plan. Things will always go wrong, no matter how prepared you are. And we can just do Ionic lab here. And
Got your seat.
Ionic lab. And
somebody in the chat was asking, Andrew wants to know, where is your get sites call coming from?
My get sites call. So my get sites call is coming from this sites provider here, which I've just created. So get sites, and then all I've done is gone to the home.ts is ion view did load. Let me just see actually if I got this right. Yeah, let's see. Maybe ion view.
You could throw a console log before that. Make sure your lifecycle hook's being called.
Yeah.
I actually like it when things go wrong, because we get to watch. Because I mean, to me, it's cool to watch the debugging process.
Yeah.
Especially for beginners when you're trying to figure this out.
Cold. Definitely being cold.
And then can you put a console log inside of the get sites call?
Yeah.
Or actually even better is inside the response.
So because I'm directly saying, oh, you know what we should do? Instead of trying to use the async pipe, maybe that's something's being weird. Let's actually just try to use like the old-fashioned way, where we'd just like have like some sort of like empty array here, and then we would go and do something like this, like the very old way. We would go like get side and just try to like subscribe, and then we would say like data and get the data, and then just.
See, this is how I would do it anyway.
Yeah. So I normally use
I prefer to do it, because I like to return the observable in the service, and then in the component just subscribe there.
Yeah, equals data. The async pipe does kind of like shorten everything for you, and this is where we can kind of now see if we have like any weird things going on. Okay, so I think we might be able to find our issue now. So let's actually save it and say console log data and see if this is getting resolved. So we're definitely getting some data. What's for some weird reason?
I think you might need to put parens around your async. Oh, you have an async pipe in your template still.
Oh, yeah. So let's save this. Okay, this is very interesting because nothing still shows here, which is very interesting. So let's actually see. So there has been a bug that I've seen one time someone report.
Somebody on chat said you removed the map.
Yeah, but no, it's back on, definitely. The Mac is back. So we're actually getting the data. We can actually see the data here. This is what we want. We are getting the data, but it wouldn't show.
Import the browser or shared module?
Yeah, so they're all there already in the app modules of TS. I think we're just gonna give this like a minute or two. Let me just make sure we're working with time. Bonnie, how many minutes have we got?
I mean, we're not gonna cut you off, Sonny. We love you. If you go over, we're still gonna listen to you talk. So
all right. Thank you very much.
We're a small group and we're super chill, so don't worry. And actually, to be honest, this is fun for me because, like, I'm not the only one that goes through this. We all like feel your pain.
Working.
The Rhythmatic in chat wants you to restart your server.
Okay, yeah, that's a good plan. Let's try.
We're all in this with you, so don't stress.
Okay, I'm definitely
mob programming session going on. A small mob programming session going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. The chat. David says and we all learn from this, right? And we go through this, so it's actually good for us to watch you because it makes us feel better about ourselves. So don't worry.
Like we can see the data, but for some reason the data wouldn't show up. Like
Andrew wants to know if we can debug his app when you're done with this.
Hey Sonny, how about throwing a JSON pipe somewhere on your template just to see if you can get your template to show up and do some stuff?
Okay, so we're just saying we just want to do something like instead of, let's just say we were doing something like this, where we would just want to have like a div, and we just want to do something like
a free tag, but yeah.
Yeah. So that will be site observable with the JSON pipe, right?
Yep. And then you'll want a pre instead of a div to get your pretty printing.
Okay, pre. So the data is actually, what's going on with my computer? The data I've run into a similar problem before when I was working with a client. So yeah, where nothing just shows, and then I take this code, I create a brand new app, and that it works. Okay, you know what? Let's do here. Let's see.
Oh, you have build errors.
Did I get
that?
Whereabouts?
In your console log, or in your terminal.
This is a different what's it called? No SAS does not support your current system. So what I'm going to do here is just delete this because I have like this, and then I'm going to do
infamous node SAS errors. I've seen those before.
Yeah, this is like because I had like this new thing where I just worked out. So I've seen something that's very similar where we had this issue with a client where for some reason we were working and then we created a brand new app and took the exact same code and voila. And something tells me as soon as this npm install, which shouldn't take time because I've got a pretty fast connection, finishes, that's exactly what we're going to get here. Because we are not seeing anything, Lord knows. You see, no matter how prepared you are, these things will show up and creep in. And we have no errors. That's the most annoying part. So we have, let's site subsite observable. Come on, guys. Come on. Let's actually, in the meantime, try to do this here, where we create some new Ionic application here. cd let's say Ionic start blank, and just have this backup application somewhere doing its thing. So yeah, I mean, anyone can. All I know is like no one can see like a syntax error. This is like a trivial using Angular to. No one can see like a glaring syntax error. That's the most important thing that I want to know. That we cannot see here. Localhost.
Well, it's kind of hard when you have 10 people helping you. But
yeah.
So you don't have any errors in your terminal right now?
There are no errors at all. Like the app is running smooth as ever.
And can we see your view again?
Yeah. So this is my view, and if I was to
no, I mean your HTML code.
Okay. So my HTML code is this. This is my HTML code in terms of we've got a card, and we're trying to just loop through that card with this.
Can you do me a favor? Can you, like above that Ion dash card, can you just put site obs in there just by itself and see if it's in maybe like async or whatever, or I mean in the inside the curly brackets, and just see if you can get that big. Oh, hey, there it is.
Oh, so this is the other app, which is running the exact same code.
So if you could just put your site obs in there, in just like in the curly brackets, and see if you can get that to spit out.
Yeah, so I don't know, probably something like this is the part where we'll be like, oh, this never happened, guys, by the way. Like nothing is actually showing up. So let's actually see normal text. I think there might be something wrong. Maybe I broke the build system. So this is showing up, but nothing else is. Interesting. I think we might have found a bug actually, guys. Like we might have just
some tiny little simple thing that we just.
So that's the pre-tag. Nothing is getting bound. I still don't want this to defeat us.
Can you humor me and try and swap your browser module versus your HTTP module in your import list?
Okay.
The Angular imports.
So like this.
No, like put the HTTP below the browser module. I think he's saying.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. That would be just crazy. So that doesn't make a difference.
Are you sure it shouldn't be async in the HTML instead of JSON? Well, because I think when I subscribe and then I create that in the subscription in the component, I still have to put the async in.
Only if it's an observable. Right now, we've changed it from observable to just a normal.
Okay, but by the time that comes back, the view's already loaded.
Yeah, that's fine, but because this will be bound as an empty object and then it will change to like a normal data, it should know. Work. So we're definitely getting the data back. And at this point, even if we do console log, and we actually say this dot site observable, we would actually see that it's getting there. I don't know. I think we've generally found a problem. Exactly. So this is actually the actual variable. So this should definitely bind, but it's not. And we can just disregard this part. I feel like if we copy this bit of code, like we actually did it in another application. Do you guys want to like just swap the code? So we definitely have it working. This is what we want to see. We definitely have it working in the other application.
I mean, I don't want to mess up your presentation, but I'm kind of liking the debugging. Can we try one more thing?
Okay, that's perfect. That works for me. So
can you create just a string in your TypeScript in your component file, just in like inside? So when you subscribe to that observable, right? Yeah. Can you go in there and oh, hold on. The arithmetic says import HTTP and not HTTP module. And what are you talking about in the?
Oh no, so this has to be imported for HTTP. HTTP already is imported in our site.
Yeah.
That's already there. That's already there here. That's definitely already here. But we need the module itself because that's where the actual service comes from.
So I was thinking I would be interested to see if you just take a super simple string and define that, and then put that on your, just say like hello world in your TypeScript file.
So like let's say something like let me duplicate this. Let's say public yare, like yare equals, like yare.
Yeah.
You just try to
and now take that and change it in the well, yeah, or just get it to pop up there. But then I'm thinking if you change it inside subscribe.
I might have spotted something. Is it sites obs, not site obs on line 11?
Oh,
hey, Jenny got it. Woo!
Oh my God. Is this the point where we all feel like very stupid?
Yeah, but we're all stupid together, so it's okay.
I wonder if that Visual Studio Code plugin with the Angular services would.
Of course it is. That's the exact problem. Like we didn't see the S.
Get you a case of beer for that one, Denny.
So who solved this problem?
Denny.
Oh my God, you're a legend. It's like we totally didn't leave it out. Of course, you see, this is why you should never have African education.
No, that was fun though.
Oh my God! So we can actually just go ahead and like. This is so funny. Like this is the funniest thing ever. Like.
That was awesome.
So this should actually work.
I'm glad we didn't open a GitHub issue yet.
Yeah. Sorry. So this is probably because we don't have the async pipe here. Async. Actually, we've learned. So it wasn't a problem that we've. Oh, what's going on here?
This thing is C.
Typo.
So it's nobody. Oh my God! This is why I should have used WebStorm. Because WebStorm would tell you that, hey, this does not exist. Like, hey, this is your problem here. So what we're gonna just go do, close this guy here, like the main guy, like the backup guy. We're just gonna close this guy. But one thing I want to say is another great thing that we're able to do is that now we have like 8100 here running, which is the backup guy, and we have this guy running 8101 and 8100, which is cool. Like we have two, so you can serve multiple Ionic apps, and it will just open you a new port, which is actually always pretty cool thing to know. So we can just close this guy before my CPU goes to, like dies. And this is what we have now. We have this beautiful application of all these beautiful places: Jerusalem, Haifa, Nazareth, Jaffa, and I've been to like half of these places. But here's the problem here. We have these mobile applications, but when we do this guy, this is what we see. Can anybody remember this guy? Like, this guy is not good for business. This guy is the reason why a lot of people, the companies lose people. So we need this guy to go on a diet. How do we do that? Exactly. Ionic has a great grid system now that we can actually take advantage of. And I can actually just, to save us some time, I can just go ahead and like copy some code here to like for the grid. And we can just copy this grid code just to save us the time. And I would explain what that grid code is doing. So all we've done here is literally just copy that grid code, and we can just highlight this. Comment this out. So all we've done with Ionic Grid is we've created this grid here, right? This is just like a standard grid. And we've created a row, but we created columns in that row. And what we need to do is we want to make it responsive. So Ionic allows us to like just basically like say how we want to split that column. But one important thing is you have to start from it has to go in ascending order. So you want to say on an extra large screen, I want you to use 3 columns, and by default it's a 12 grid column. So that means on an extra large screen you want 4 sections. On a large screen, extra large screen, something like TV, really big monitors. On a large screen, we want 4. So that means you want to have 3 because 12 divided by 3, you want to have 3 sections. On a medium screen, which is something like a tablet, we want to have 2. And then on a mobile phone, like just a normal small screen, we want to have just 12. And then if anything fails, just use the standard 12 screen. And that's all we've done. So let's actually see. So nothing has actually really changed here, but if we take this guy here and do him here and go here, and we actually reduce this guy here, this is what we see. So this is an extra large screen here because I have a retina display. So we can see how we've been able to like really morph this guy now. And still we've written only 1 code. And as soon as we just, we break, this guy becomes like this. So now we're not on a large screen. And when we do this is like how it would look on a tablet. We respect to the space. And then when we go to this guy, which is actually a really, really big phone or like a standard iPhone 6 display, this is what we will see. So I think this is really, really awesome because we'll be able to like literally make it responsive. So now your Ionic app is not just your web application, like your mobile application. This can also be a normal web app. And this is the greatness of things we can do. So at this point in time, we actually have 4 applications. What next is our progressive web app. So how do we make our progressive web app, our normal web application now progressive? Because if we actually go now and do this, here we say we inspect the element here, and we go to the network tab and we say we are offline. How do you say offline here? And we refresh this guy here. He's gonna give us this great game, which I love to play. And we can just play this guy here, So what do we want to do? How do we want to solve this? Okay. When we go to whenever you create a new Ionic app, a service worker gets created for you. And that service worker is like, they've actually upgraded it because it uses the service worker toolbox now, which is pretty cool. Like service worker toolbox, I haven't quite used. It just makes it really easy to like work with the service worker to cache stuff and everything. But they've actually written most of the code for you, more or less. And all you need to do here to actually make this work is just to go to the index.html, and you can just uncomment this script right here. Uncomment this script right here. Actually, this is what we need to. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Uncomment this guy and uncomment that guy, and then we just hit save. And now what this happens is everything here is going to be built, bundled to our www folder, yada yada yada, and we can get this guy here. So now if we go to this guy here, we can refresh this guy and we have a service worker. So if we actually inspect the element and we go to application, we can see that we have a service worker that is running and that has been successfully. So now if we go to actually network tab and we go offline and we actually refresh this guy here, we should still be able to play around with the application more or less. Exactly. So we can just make this responsive here. So this guy is actually offline, but we can actually still see sort of like our app being rendered. I can just make this a little bit bigger. And with that, we've actually done our service worker. So the 5 applications we wanted to create has actually gone ahead and it has come to fruition. And each of those apps now, we can actually go ahead and run them on an iOS emulator, and I actually show you that. And I think this is the point where I now welcome like questions. People can tell me like what specific feature they want to see on Ionic, or you want to see a specific component. How do we implement this component? And I can go ahead and sort of like we can build this app to whatever we want it to do now. We can do navigation if that's what you want to see, but we've actually done the basics, which is what? Create 5 applications with 1 code. So the flow is open now.
I don't know about anybody else, but one thing that I really liked when I first started using Ionic, just the new version of Ionic, was the whole nav.push. And I know you have to set up another. Well, it's actually pretty easy because you have this CLI, so it's pretty quick to set up another page if you want to. If you feel like you want to show that nav.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of that's a great thing we do. So why don't we go and do a detail page? Everybody agree? We can go ahead and do a detail, because if you actually look at this guy here, what we can see is that we see this, you know, this piece of like code basically, right? So let's go ahead and do like a detail page. So what we would do is we just open up a new terminal. We can just say, let me just clear this a little bit. Ionic generate page. We can say site detail. We can hit enter. So what you see now is in the pages, there's this new page called site detail. And what we need to do is actually go to the app module and register this, because I don't think this registers automatically for us. So import from, we can go pages. Okay, pages, site detail. And we can actually just go ahead and do this. I can't believe we spent like half an hour fixing the typo. Visual Studio Code, not good if you don't have the right things. So what we
thought
do,
it was fun. We bonded.
Yeah, so site detail, you need to make sure you add it to your declarations and your entry components as well. Like I said, Mark Hartington explains this to me. The day he explained it, I just kind of nodded in my head and said, yes, I understand, but yeah, don't tell him I don't. But also, remember, you can also lazy load. So with this now, let's say what we want to do is every time somebody clicks a specific site, we want to be able to just send them towards that particular, what's it called? So whenever you like tap a specific tab or card, we can just say that on click here, we want to, let's say, go to site detail. And maybe let's just be lazy and actually just send like the site itself, the actual thingy data. And we can just create this function here. So how do we navigate in? Because in the mobile application, when you're navigating, it's not really like a web. It's not based on the URL. You're actually going from page to page. Everything is like on the same breadcrumb level, right? Every page is a first-class citizen, or can be a first-class citizen. I mean, it needs to be treated like that. You don't want to have like, this is what the UI router was very bad at, creating nested views, which is what the Victor took his time to get us this great router. So how do you route to this particular page? First, you need to know which page you're going to. So you want to import that particular page you're going to. So let's do that. Let's import this new site detail page from, we can go here, we can go site detail, and we can go site detail. So we need to make sure we get that page or the component page here, site detail. And by default, whenever when we started, we actually see that we already have like the nav controller. So this is what you need, the Ionic nav controller. This is what allows you to go from one place to another. So we can just use this nav controller here and just say, hey, nav controller, we want you to take us to, site detail page. And that's about it. But we also want to send data. So if you look at the nav controller here, and you look at like its, what's it called? The nav controller dot push, sorry. This is the function. So it has a push and a pop method. The pop method it works like a stack. Pop just removes the last thing that was navigated to, and push just basically pushes to the navigation stack. And you can reach out to this stack and like say, okay, no, I want you to delete everything that I've navigated in the past. So you can do so many powerful things. But all it needs is just the page itself, and you can pass in like some parameters and stuff like that. You can also pass in like options. Should you navigate with like animation? So many things, which one we're not really going to be bothered with today. So we're just going to say here, and this is where we're just going to pass in a parameter. And this can be a string, but please, for the sake of like, I don't know, everything that's saying, use an object. So we can just say site. Yeah, never ever use a string, please. Or you can just say site.
For the sake of everything that's sane.
Yeah, please use an object at least. And you can also pass another one to say, okay, you know, for this particular navigation, I don't want you to use like animations. You can use so many nav options, and we can actually see what the nav options are here. You can check the push, so you can actually see this interface. You can do things like, oh, don't animate. Okay, no, don't animate, but different direction. Oh no, use this particular ease in, or close the keyboard when you navigate. Oh, disable. You can do so many things. Update the URL after you navigate as well, because Ionic still allows you to work with the URL, which is a so let's go and see this particular page, this site detail. How do we actually get that data when we go to the site's detail page? Well, we have something called the nav params, and this is automatically injected for us. The nav params has that particular thing, so we can just say this dot. We can console log. We can say this dot nav params, and the nav params have something called the data. Well, you can actually just get that particular, so you can pass a variable, so site, or you can just get the data. We will just get you everything that was passed in the navigation, so we can actually go ahead and see this. So let's actually go ahead and see this now in action. Okay, so let's refresh this guy. Oh,
Denny.
Oh yeah,
You're on.
offline, right? Sorry. Yeah, so one thing we want to do actually is make sure that in this point, we can just disable the service worker, just to make sure like we don't run into any caching. We're not worried about like caching issues or something like that. So we can just like take this guy here and be like, yeah, we've proved that you work. So let's just kind of disable you here now. And what we want to do here is inspect this element and application and just clear all the data, clear site data, do this, and just refresh. Oh, okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think I know what's wrong here. I know exactly what is wrong. I think I do. Because right now the Ionic CLI generates you a couple of files, so we go to sites.detail.ts. We might have where, oh, actually they've removed that. So let's see. Webpack, Angular for not root is function. I haven't got a clue what this is actually. Huh. Anyone got any clue? This is like a Webpack error.
You need Sean Larkin.
Where are you?
C4 root.
So let's see. Webpack module Ionic 3 for root is not a function. That is very interesting. So I don't know. Today we're just not having luck with a lot of these errors. I haven't seen this particular error before, so I'm actually pretty confused right now. Let's see. For root, because there's been an issue lately where whenever you generated a page, you had a module got generated for you for lazy loading, and I think they've changed that recently, so we have 3 files here. So I don't know.
Hey, Sani, I had something like this happen the other day because my dependencies were in the wrong order. Because I was calling something like if you call the home page before you call the site detail page, but the site detail page is a dependency, then it's gonna fuss at you. So maybe when you declare it, maybe in your declarations or in your import statements, the site detail page needs to come in before the home page. I could be wrong, but
what, at this level or at the declarations level?
I think it needs to be imported first. Well, okay. No, I think I don't know. I'm just
let's try both. Let's try both. I think it's a Webpack error. Definitely, this is not an Ionic specific error.
You know, in VS Code, if you hold down Option, you can just use your arrow key to move a line up.
Oh, what is Option? I don't even know what key Option is.
Alt, maybe if you're on a
Windows. Oh yeah. Ah.
Isn't that fun?
What have I done? Ah. I'm having too much fun with that, sorry. So I don't know what the hell is going on here. Let's actually try and see if we actually took this out, would that solve the problem? Then we can just reuse our current page that works, because we already have one page that works.
Maybe restarting the server. I ran into something like this with the Angular CLI and just like restarting it.
Yeah, when you add new,
all the change.
adding new
Especially
files
if you
doesn't
add-
like.
So let's
Sorry,
let's
Paul, go ahead.
trash this, where's the trash icon? There's a trash icon. Here we go. Let's trash this guy here. Let's trash this guy here, and let's do the lab again from scratch. Hopefully this time it should work.
It's more stressful for you, Sani, because you're in the hot seat. We're having fun.
Yeah, like I'm seeing errors that I've never ever seen before, like forgetting an S. Oh, here we go. So I think the guy works now. So
It looks happy
yeah,
in the terminal.
just listen.
So basically, we just needed to restart it after you generated a new component. You needed to restart your server. You think that was the problem?
I don't know. It could be a logger. It could be the service worker, whatever. At this point, I would say I do not know, but it works now. So we can just go ahead and see. So we can see that we named this particular property site. So in site details, we can just do that site. So let's actually go ahead and see what this looks like here, and we can actually just inspect the element. So let's just say if when we click this, we go to this particular site detail, and if we inspect the element, what do we see? We can see the object here getting logged out. So this is how you would pass in a sort of like a parameter, and you can pass any parameter. They don't have to be pre-declared. The router doesn't matter. So let's actually go ahead and use this site details. So we can just go to the site details page here, and we can just say we can just use another card here, Ion card, and then we can say use an image here. Why don't we just go ahead and reuse what we already have, right? So Ion card here, save ourselves some time. So we can just go this guy, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can just say, what did we call this guy? So we could just go ahead and sites detail here, name this guy, let's say public site, right? And we can just say it's just an empty object. And a constructor is a great place actually to, this is what my own personal practice, a constructor is a great place to get variables because this happens very early on. So we can just say this, the site equals, is the navparam site, and we have done this, and now we have this site variable that we can actually just go ahead and use. So Ion card, you can say content, and inside there we can just open up a paragraph and say let's actually see what we did here. So it's called description. So we can say site.description. Hopefully I spelled this right. And we can actually go ahead and see. So when we click this, voila. You know what would be nice actually? One more thing. What would be nice is if we could just make this the name. We can say site.name here. So voila. This is basically simple like navigation. Let's actually make sure we add those other platforms here to make everything look a bit more real. And when we tap here, simple, we go to the, and you can see the animation is very different. So this is Android. Now look at iOS. When we tap this, it's sliding from the right-hand side, you know. And when we do the same for Windows, you can see it's more like a reveal. It's more like a inception. Windows works differently as well. It's more like it just appears in and takes over. So this is also platform continuity. By default, the Ionic team has figured out the type of, you know, even like the icons here. iOS likes more text. Android uses this icon. The Windows uses this icon. It has done that for you by default. You can see like Jerusalem, some beautiful places. Haifa still on my list. I haven't been yet. And these are some. And also another thing it does, what's it called? If you're on iOS, on a real iOS device, you can actually enable swipe back to like reveal. So you can actually swipe back to go back. You can do that on iOS. It does view caching for you. So if we had like, this was a tab and we opened this and we went to another tab and we came back, this view will be cached. We didn't have to like navigate back. So another what's the next thing that anyone else from the audience would want to see as well?
I wanted to throw something in there, but you don't have to demo it. But when you're doing the push and pop on that nav, don't forget, just in case we have beginners listening, that there's the set route.
Yes, to go back to the.
If you want to talk about that just for a second.
Yep. So I can actually show that. So navigation here. So this is just the API for the navigation. Actually, let's just see the navigation API reference here. And so why this is very powerful is with Angular 1, you couldn't go from the same page to the same page. But what makes this possible is with this particular navigation I've shown, you can keep on going to the same page over and over again. And there's also another way you can actually, another Bonnie, you might not know this, or you might, but you can also declaratively navigate as well. You don't have to like use an on-click, so you can actually go here and say something like nav push here. Like you can do this, and then you can pass in like a reference to some like what's it called, page or component here, and then you can pass parameters and say like you can do something like nav params, like, and then pass this like to an object. So this is like how you declaratively do it. And if you also wanted to like maybe go back, you can also do like nav pop. So you can just use nav pop here, add this directive. And let's actually go ahead and see this. That anytime you click this, it will just pop automatically for you. So if I go this and then I click this back, it just pops back. So you didn't see me click this button. If I just click this card, it will just pop back because I've declaratively used the nav pop. So this can be useful.
That's pretty sweet. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not really used because, you know, standard Angular, we just want to bind to the click event. But yeah, so what Bonnie was saying was the set route is a function that's available to the nav controller here, the service. I can show that.
I like to use set route on login because I don't, when they log in, then I want to use set route to, it's basically like nav.push. And yes. I want to go to the home page, but I don't want that back button to show up.
That is perfect. When you use set route, when you're logging in, it's perfect to use set route because it's a perfect time. Your user's logged in, you authenticated him. You want the navigation to start from beginning again. So that in case they deep link, they don't have to go to the login page, they log in and they go, no, that's perfect. It's a very good pattern, actually. So it's a function. You can do set route. You can do so many things. You can like, what's it called? With the nav, it literally gives you so many functions. Like you can reach into the stack and be like, okay, give me the page at position, remove this page or add that page as well. So yeah, there are a lot of other things, like much more advanced things. You can like check when the view has initialized. You can get the root page. But yeah, that's another.
One thing I kind of want to point out, I did a little bit of iOS development. Just a little bit, a long time ago, and it has like a push pop model with native apps. So it's really neat to see Ionic have the same model. Just if you're a native developer coming to Ionic, like that helps that transition because you're kind of familiar with that navigation model.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I was just about to highlight this line. They actually pretty much copied the iOS and they admitted like concepts like those in iOS, and they even link it here. So this was really, really inspired by iOS. And the reason was in Angular 1, we had to use like the URL with those pesky things that those named variables. But with here, you can just be very flexible. And also you can still work with the URL bar because we have something we call the deep linker that allows you, like for someone like me where I'm generating Ionic just for, not just for mobile, but for web as well. You can do both of them at the same time. Exactly. So the floor is open, guys. Feel free to demo any feature you want to see. Like we can talk about the action sheets. We can talk about some tabs here. Some slide boxes. There's so many components that we have. We cannot. Some segments, things like that.
Sani, Andrea in the chat wants to know is Ionic mobile first? If you definitely know that your app is not going to be mobile, would you still use Ionic? I would probably not, but what do you think? That's a good question. So I've gotten to that place where I de facto use Ionic for everything now. I know that sounds like I'm not using the right tool for the right job and one of the reasons is that, no matter what material design, which is a great, like it's supposed to be for web and everything, it's still very early stages. The Ionic team is actually
heavily working for desktop support. This is where like they're facing they're like, this is why they made, so the grid that they used to have didn't used to be as great. If you're not really working on a mobile application today, yes, I would say, you know, you're gonna use ng Bootstrap, material design, things like that. That's probably the right way to go. But I think how many people are working on a desktop only application today? That's a very good question to ask. Like, most people are building, you know, what you call desktop is not just desktop anymore. It has to be responsive of some sort. And I think Ionic is the one thing that gives you from scratch. Even if you're using something like Bootstrap, ng Bootstrap, you still have to like configure your own browser Wi-Fi, you know, Webpack and all these things. But the Ionic CLI just gives you all that. It has so much. Like, it is very, very what's it called? I can show you the deep linker.
I had something a couple years ago when the responsive first started getting really big. Actually, I mean, the responsive was already really big, but I had a project and I specifically asked, do we want this to be responsive? And they said, no, we don't want it to be responsive. And I said, are you sure? And they said, yeah, we're not going to use this on mobile. And then after I finished building the whole thing and we were finished, they said, oh, go back and make it responsive. I was like,
exactly. What? It's just so Ionic has this deep linker as well, like that allows you to basically play around with this. Because right now, if you're using a standard Ionic, once you just click the back button, and the whole page goes away, right? Because that's what you would expect. If I do this and I just go like, you know, back, like the whole, no matter where I am, if I just go back here, that's it. And they did that by design because they want your mobile first. You know, this is not changing. But if you want to work with that, you have the deep linker, which allows you to like basically change this, the URL bar, and like basically be in line with the Angular router, if that makes sense. Exactly. So I hope I answered that question well. Sorry. Next question?
Yeah, so I got one. Yeah. So Ionic obviously has a collection of components that you can drop in.
Yep.
Let's say there's one that just isn't in the set. Like there's kind of a standard kind of UI element that they just don't happen to have because no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Are there any kind of general rules of thumb or guidelines around, all right, I've got this one-off component, but I got to use it in all 5 of those applications. Like, how do you do that so that it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb on, you know, 1 or 2 of those?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I found myself needing to do. Sorry, have you finished asking the question?
Yeah.
So this is very true. I found myself needing to do this. So we were working on the Ionic, an application that we've been working on for almost a year. And so this is what the Ionic daytime looks like, right? This is what I'll show you the component. You know, this is perfect on mobile. But when you're on a large screen and you have a date coming from the bottom and you're designing for people that like have been out of work for like a year and most of them have never like used, you know, really top class like applications. They don't really understand complex UX. It can be difficult. Material design, on the other hand, has a great, you know, click, something comes up and everything. So we needed to do this recently. And it was actually pretty easy because it's a more advanced concept, but Ionic allows you to sort of like tie in with the build tools. And it already gives you so many things. It's so easy. All I needed to do was just go to my package.json here. And all I needed to do is, so you have all these scripts here. They've already given you some of these commands. And I think all I needed to do was like Ionic copy, because all I needed to do was copy the after installing the, you know, Angular material, importing the date, the component I needed. All I needed to do was just do something called Ionic copy and then pass it a file, like a configuration file of I mean, I can show this to you off screen, but because what's it called? But yes, it's so easy. So like how it's not as easy as how Angular allows you to just go to, you know, that little Angular CLI.json file that you can just go and just add like an external script and, you know, your life is good. It's definitely not as simple as that, but it's not actually pretty difficult. You just kind of like create like a file. Like, okay, you can decide you just want it copied. You can decide that you want it like bundled as well with like your bundle. So many things. It gives you so many options that they've created all these shorthand functions for you, which they I think they highlighted here. I think it's here. I know it's no, this is not yeah, they highlight them here somewhere, like where they tell you like if you want to do really, really more advanced stuff. But yeah, all I'm saying, I think the simple answer is yes, it's possible. And this is something I've just done recently as well. I think it's here actually. It's third-party libraries. There we go. So this is something we've done. Yeah, you could just install the libraries. You could like, it's very detailed here. They tell you how you can go ahead and like add things like Lodash or things that don't have, you know, so many things, if that makes sense.
One of the chat people was asking about Bootstrap. I know I used Bootstrap for a couple of years before I learned about Angular material design. Do you think it would be kind of because I know, I mean, Ionic uses material by default, so it's already there, right? Do you think it would be kind of overkill to bring in Bootstrap if there was a developer that was just really familiar with Bootstrap because they've already used it? Or do you think that would be?
I mean, it depends for what reason. The only reason I can see you bring some elements of Bootstrap into like Ionic would be maybe if you're building a desktop application, you know. Like I said, the desktop support for Ionic is still not there yet. They're working on this to make all the components like 3-in-1, not just 2-in-1, and not just mobile and hybrid, but also like, you know, all those contextual design stuff will just, when it's on the desktop, it will just be bigger. They're definitely working hard on that. But the only reason why, if you're creating just strictly mobile, I would say no, never. Bootstrap is not meant for that. And Bootstrap is the reason things like Ionic exist, because they were not good enough for mobile. But if you find yourself that on the desktop, maybe when something is, you know, being a specific media query point is reached, you want some specific element to be ng-ifed in or out, then maybe I can see the case for that. And it should be pretty straightforward as well. Just same thing as you're doing any other Angular app, just bring it in, and it's part of your build process, and you're good to go.
I feel like I got spoiled because I did a couple of Angular or Ionic apps, and then I went back and worked on another one that didn't use Ionic, and then I was spoiled because I wanted to use that nav push, and I had to go write my own router, and I was kind of bummed that because it was so much easier. Ionic was like right there. I mean, it's not that hard, to write the router, but it was kind of nice. I was sitting there doing Angular, and I was like, oh man, I can't use nav.push if I'm not using Ionic.
Yeah, no, I think the navigation definitely, I would say, is definitely superior. If you might, it's just much easier to use. Like, I train people with Angular, and navigation is like a day's class. It's like you really got to teach them so much, and that's fine, because that's desktop navigation. But like, I still feel I like the way, because Ionic team were waiting for the Angular team to bring a router. We know how long that took, because they really wanted to get it right, which was by design. Victor took his time, and which we all love it. So they actually just went ahead and wrote a router. And I generally prefer the Ionic router, because I feel like the Angular router could be the same as well. And now they've actually made it so great. So there's this thing called Ionic Page. It's called Ionic Page. Where is it? Which I actually want to show you. Let me show you deep. Actually, I can just search. I think it's deep link. We can just say deep link Ionic Page. So here it is. So now it's actually going to be pretty easy when you're using the lazy loaded way for Ionic. You're just going to have, on top of your Ionic add component decorator, you're just going to have this Ionic Page decorator. And here's the great things you can do with Ionic Page decorator. You can actually name your page and like give it a URL. You can give it some path right there. So and I think this is what I think the Angular router, this is what I envisioned originally when I saw this. Like, it should have been like this, on the component level, you can just declare a path. But of course, it makes it very difficult to like have a unified, like that you run into problems where you can have the same component having the same path. They probably have a design decision for that. But I really like this, like, just allows you to like, worry about each particular page that, hey, this is a path it should take, and stuff like that.
We have another question in the chat from Weston. What capabilities do we lose, if any, if we create native mobile apps with something like Ionic versus using Swift?
Versus what?
Versus using Swift, or like that, instead of writing it native when we do Ionic, do we lose any functionality? Is there anything you can't do?
Okay, so that is like the endless question, isn't it? It's like you're basically asking native versus hybrid. The way I normally see it, I think is a wrong way to ask the question. I'm not trying to discount the question. I'm going to answer it. It's because we then get into this places. Oh, which one is better? It's faster. It's this. So of course, when you're using Swift, or that's native, like you're close to the metal, like you're as native as you get. But what is native? In terms of what people expect is just an experience. When people download an application, they don't really see, oh, was it built on Swift? Does it work? Is it nice? Does it feel good? Is it slow? Is it quick? Bang. There are some apps that you shouldn't be building with, like the web today. You shouldn't go and build 3D accelerated game with Ionic, with the web. This is why web assembly is coming through, because we want to get, and when web assembly comes in, I think that's pretty much it. Like we can't make a case for native anymore. That's the end of like what we know as native today. No one would probably be making a proper native app because you can have Photoshop on the web. And so yeah, there are some applications, definitely anything that requires a lot of really specific memory manipulation. You need to like be as close to the metal as possible. Do not go web. Don't go near the web. There's a reason why Photoshop is not on the web. Well, it is, but you know what I mean, like the proper Photoshop. It's don't go near the web. The web is not there yet. So, but in terms of functionalities you lose, you don't necessarily lose anything, because in the end of the day, you're bundling it with Cordova. And what Cordova is doing is just giving you a bridge between your web app and the native. So anything you can do on native, you can actually do with Cordova, because you can just write a plugin to just get that feature. So you have like a publish subscribe system where and this is where I can actually talk about ng Cordova. I shouldn't say ng Cordova, Ionic native, which is basically an angularized version of all these famous Cordova plugins. So you can have things like 3D Touch if you're used to AdMob, Air Alipay, so many stuff and more get added every day. You can add your own, and even if you don't have this, you can just use the plugins normally. But the barcode scanner, the camera, so you have access to everything. If it doesn't exist here, you can just create some sort of like plugin by yourself. But most of the ones that you see yourself needing, geolocation, FTP, even like fingerprint reader is here. Like you don't really need in-app purchases here, like Instagram, everything share. So yeah, it's all pretty good, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I think I'm going to do last call for questions, because we, Sani, we could keep asking you questions all night, but I know it's like 3 o'clock in the morning there.
It's like 2:17. Don't worry, I still got like 2 hours left. That's fine.
You're so awesome. Anybody else have any more questions for Sani?
Yeah, I was curious, when you turn that service worker on, how did it make a decision on what to save or persist, or what to do for when you flipped over to that offline mode? Because it looked like you didn't lose any data. How did it know what to save or persist on the device?
All right. So by default, the service worker that comes with Ionic is actually, they've done some work for you. And actually, this is the first time I realized that they've actually moved to service worker toolbox. Like the service worker I used to have was like the old type. Like I think if I show you my app here, except maybe. Oh, okay. So for a while, I just haven't paid attention then. So now they use the service worker toolbox, which is this open source by, I think it's by Google. It just makes it so easy to work with service workers, because service workers are a pain. Like they have so many things you can do. So by default, they've just said, just bundle anything that's in the build folder, literally. These are some of the things you would need, right, for Ionic. Like just basically cache these. Pre-cache these. Actually, it says pre-cache them. So this is actually just gonna run as soon as the app starts running for the very first time, and from there on, anytime you need to get that what's it called, resource, if it's already existing in the cache, just go to the cache. That's why when we go offline, we can do. But of course, this is totally up to you. You can decide what you want to do, how you intend to do that. I think this is what the service worker doesn't do. You normally have to like come up with your own versioning system, create your own cache name and everything, like stuff like that. But the great thing with service worker is it gives you unlimited storage. I mean, you can even have persistent, non-persistent. So when they started the service worker, when they released it first, when your system ran out of memory, it could delete anything from your service worker. But I think now you have they're making this feature where even when your system is running out of memory, you can say, do not delete my application. So the system will just at least say, you can't complete this action because you ran out of memory in your app. So you'd have to do it manually. Great days, in my opinion. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure is all mine.
Well, I think that's it, Sani. This was so much fun. I know that we probably stressed you out debugging that, and you were ready to pivot, but we didn't want to let it go because we wanted to figure it out. But that was really a lot of fun. And I thought I knew a lot about Ionic, but I learned some new things tonight that are pretty cool. So I thought this was really fun, and I really appreciate you coming out and talking to us.
It's fun. I mean, we spent like 30 minutes looking for an S that wasn't there.
Yeah, but we found it. Well, Denny found it, actually.
Denny found it. Denny was like, oh, is it just like sides? And then we're like, oh no. It's one of those ones again.
It was fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Like, if anybody has any issues, like, you can just reach me out on Twitter, Sani Yusuf, SANIYUSUF. I really don't bite. Maybe just a little. It depends if you have cookies or not. But yeah, like literally, you can reach out and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. If you got any like we got a Slack channel, right? Like, it's so weird. I keep have to remind people, like, I don't actually work for Ionic, but because I've been part of the project from like pretty much the get-go, like, feel free. I love to see problems people are having, things they're trying to solve. It makes me learn, and they teach me, and I teach them in return as well. It's like, it's the best deal we can have, right?
They said in the chat they want to do more debugging sessions.
So
I said that's probably more fun for us than it is for him, because that's probably stressful when you're the one driving and it's giving you problems. But that was fun. Well, thank you again so much, Sani. I really appreciate you coming out. And thanks, Corey and Denny and Paul, for joining the panel. And we will see you guys again next week.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Sorry, bye.